Hey guys, I'm Rix here, and today we're bringing in a new rendition of the series. I know that normally I compare Brickmania and the Minifig Co. minifigures for this kind of comparison of third-party companies series. However, today we have a new contender. So what we are going to be looking at is on the right, we have a figure from Forest Moon Bricks, which is of course Grand Admiral Thrawn from Star Wars. And then on the left, we have the same figure, and that one is from the Minifig Co. So, as always, if you're a new viewer on the channel or you're a returning viewer, I always forget where to put a pointer to use in these minifigure review videos. So I have found one now. It took me, 20 seconds, but I will be using this RPG to point with, I think. So let's get right into it. So I think the first thing that is a big difference between the two right off the bat is that the Minifigure Co. version 1 has an extra head. As you can see, it has an angry head. So that is just a little added bonus that you get. Of course, as you guys might know from previous videos, I'm a huge supporter and proponent of head variation. I think that that's really important for these third-party companies because when you are someone like me who buys a lot of these minifigures, it's really annoying when they all have like the same face or they all have very, very similar faces that have slight differences. So to me, this is kind of a point in TMC's favor that they have this custom printed head here in addition to the custom printed one that it comes with. So anyways, let me zoom in, or I guess I'm just moving my camera a little bit closer to the minifigures themselves. I think that when you look at the front of these, something that immediately jumps off and really is very obvious as a difference, should I say, is that the belt on the two of them, very different, right? So the TMC one, while they both have these kind of circular designs, as you can see, this for reference, just so you guys remember, TMC is on the left and Forest Moon Bricks is on the right. But as I was saying, the TMC belt, so they both have this belt buckle right here, but the TMC one only has this one little belt loop to the left, to our right, but to the minifigure's left of the buckle. As you can see, if I switch to the other side, to the Forest Moon Bricks one, he actually has a bunch of buckles. Now, I actually didn't watch much of the series that Thrawn was involved with in the Star Wars universe, so I'm not really sure which one of these is more accurate. Maybe one of you Star Wars buffs will know better which one of these is more accurate. Because I'm sure that one of them are, because a lot of belt holes versus no belt holes is kind of a significant difference. So I think the next big difference that you kind of see right off the bat is the size of these shoulder kind of golden rank. I guess you'd call them the rank identifier. Of course, they have these ranks on the front, which is the same for both of them, but these are kind of like the shoulder pads that, they would wear kind of as a further representation of their high status in the Imperial Navy or the Imperial Army. But anyways, as you can see on the TMC one, they're kind of small. They're just kind of at the very top corner. But when we move over to the Forest Moon Bricks one, they are much more wide. They look like they encompass much more of the shoulder. And they're much more thin. So as you can see, the TMC one is thick, whereas this Forest Moon Bricks one is a lot thinner. So that, again, is another difference. I think the next thing that really pops out is kind of the difference in color between the two minifigures. So what you can see is that there's various points on this minifigure where obviously they use different colors. I mean, of course, while the general coloring of the minifigure is going to be the same between the two, it's not going to be exactly the same. So I'm not surprised that, for example, so I've been told that these are access cards. So that's what I'm going to be calling them. That these access cards or access keys are different colors, right? So here, this one on the TMC version is more like it's like in between a light bluish gray and a dark bluish gray. Whereas when you look at the Forest Moon Bricks version over here, it is definitely more like a light bluish gray or even a white color. So I think that that's more of design choices as opposed to who's more accurate because, those things, this is a very slight color variation. I don't think that this should color your opinion about either fig, which one is better, which one isn't. But I think that that is a variation that you notice. I think the next thing that you'll see is that in this Forest Moon Bricks figure, if you look at this rank pattern, it feels like the individual, I guess, rectangles or squares are much more obvious to see than on the TMC one. Uh, I don't know if it's just me when I look at these, but it almost feels like these TMC ones are a little bit too close together. Whereas this Forest Moon Bricks version, you can see, like, you can very clearly see how many of each of these colored squares there are in the Forest Moon Bricks version. I think that it's still there in the TMC version, as you can see on the left. I think that it's just a little bit harder to see. So maybe this is a point where Forest Moon Bricks win. You know, the rank, kind of the rank area or the rank badge, I guess we could call it, actually being a little bit clearer, I think is a point in their favor. So next, I think that what you're going to see is there is somewhat of a design choice difference in part of this body. So as you can see, both of them have these signature kind of folds across the torso of the uniform. Now, these aren't very important. These are just kind of signifying that he's wearing it and his body, you know, the contours of his body are kind of slightly ruffling or changing, and it just makes the uniform look a little bit more accurate in terms when you have these lines, right? And what you can see, the difference is that these are not very heavily shadowed or I guess accentuated in the TMC version, but then when you look at the Forest Moon Bricks version, they're very accentuated. So, you know, a design choice. I don't think that one of these is better than the other. I just think that they're different. So now the next main thing that we should look at are these legs. So I think that in order to look at these legs a little bit closer, I'm going to need to shift the camera. So if you'll stay with me for a second, I'm just going to move it and then I'll be right back. Okay, guys, I am back. That was a very enthusiastic okay, guys. But anyways, I moved the camera and now we are looking at the legs themselves. So I think something you'll notice right off the bat is that TMC's, the boots are black all the way. Whereas on Forest Moon Bricks, you can see, if I can get my finger out of the screen, that they are white on the top. Now this is because TMC used dual molded white and black legs, whereas Forest Moon Bricks just printed black onto white legs. So in terms of this, you know, where I think one side or the other wins, I think that I have to go with TMC just for the fact that these legs have printing on top of the boots. Now it isn't actually printing. That was kind of a misphrasing, I guess we could call it there by me. But the fact that they used these dual molded legs to create this figure makes it feel more realistic. However, one major difference between these two figures, as you guys might have guessed I would be going over once you heard that I was comparing Forest Moon Bricks, is that Forest Moon Bricks prints on the inside of the leg. So as you can see here on the TMC version, it lacks leg printing. It's just kind of that dual molding black that continues the basic shape and color of the boot. But beyond that, there's no real detail. However, when you look at the Forest Moon Bricks version, you can see some intense print detail on the inside of the boot, which I think really ties the whole figure together. So, you know, you might be saying, you've given points to each side so far, who really wins out on the legs? And so I mentioned that boots, the general overall look, I think that I gave it to TMC because they had the dual molding, which gives that black color on the top. However, I'll say that Forest Moon Bricks, you just cannot beat this 360-degree leg printing. So I'm gonna have to give them a point for this. So overall, I think the legs on each of the figures both have their advantages and their drawbacks. So I don't think that there really is one correct answer or one that you can say is clearly better than the other. Now I'm gonna have to shift the camera again because we're going to be looking back at the main figure. So stick with me for another 2 seconds. Okay, so now we are back looking at the figures themselves. And quickly, because I didn't find many differences on the back, there are a couple, which you'll notice here, but I don't think that there were a ton, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it if I can get these properly centered. So, as you can see, on the left, we have the TMC figure, and on the right, we have the Forest Moon Bricks figure. As always, as I've said, the biggest difference, what you can see, is that the Forest Moon Bricks has these very defined uniform lines with the black ink, as you can see, whereas TMC doesn't really have any. They have some lightly defined ones, kind of in a dotted light bluish gray pattern. So this is a pretty significant difference between the two because this is a different interpretation of the uniform. Now, I'm not entirely sure if this is simply a design choice, whether Force Moon Bricks thought that this darker kind of emphasis on these lines of the uniform was necessary and whether TMC didn't, but I do think that this is a difference. So for those of you who are, screen accurate geeks or people who really want the most realistic look as possible, I'm going to tell you that I don't know which one is more accurate. But if you do, you should go for the one that you think is more accurate yourself, because these are significant differences on the backs of figures. Now, speaking of screen accuracy and realism, something else that you guys should consider is that TMC uses a printed hairpiece. As you can see, it's kind of tinted in this dark navy blue almost right here. And then Force Moon Bricks just uses a normal black hairpiece. It's the same hairpiece, just one is colored and one isn't. I think that that's kind of the main difference on the heads is the hair, because as you can see, these faces are actually relatively similar. I think that the main difference in the faces is that the TMC one, he just looks a little bit more tense and angry, whereas in the Force Moon Bricks one, he just looks a little bit more calm. So yeah, I think the faces are generally the same, not much difference. I don't think that that should be where you make your decision between these two figures or where you draw your opinion about which one is better. But I do think that you guys should look at these hair pieces and think about which one is better, because as I've said, I didn't really watch the series that this guy was involved in the Star Wars universe, so I don't necessarily know whether this dark blue or kind of a black or even an in-between is more accurate, so I'm going to leave that up to you to decide. So, as you guys always ask me in these videos in the comments, which one do I prefer? That's always the question that I'm getting from you guys after I do one of these review videos. Let me try and get this head on the screen. So, as I always say in my Brickmania and TMC ones, I'm not going to explicitly say that I prefer one over the other. As you heard throughout this video, I found pros and cons of both of the figures. And so I think that my job is really to kind of deliver you a review of the figure that shows those pros and cons, but doesn't necessarily make a final judgment on the figure in terms of which one is better or which one is worse, right? I think that everybody can come to that conclusion themselves, and there really isn't any reason that I need to influence you in that way. So something you may have noticed that I left out in the review was these arms. And that was simply due to the fact that they're incredibly similar. I mean, you can see it's just the difference of a black with a dotted horizontal line or black with a dotted horizontal and vertical line. So, they're very similar arms right there, not a ton of difference. So I don't really think that there's much, difference between the two that, you can draw a comparison between. But as I was saying, I'm not saying that I have a preference between these two. There's pros and cons of both of them that I clearly stated and let you guys know about. So what I would like to see is I'm kind of curious which guys you prefer. Which one of these do you guys prefer between the TMC version and between the Forest Moon Bricks version? I think that both of them are valid choices, and I think that it's really just personal opinion at this point. So if you have an opinion on this, or you have a very strong opinion that you actually think the original Lego version is the best, please let me know. Please feel free to comment that below. I'd be more than happy to kind of get into a friendly conversation with people about which one they think is the best, because I think that that's always the most fun. Answering your guys' comments is always a good time for me, and I appreciate all of them. But as always, that kind of wraps up this review, or not review video. This is kind of a comparison video, as I was saying, looking at Forest Moon Bricks and TMC's Thrawn figures, or Grand Admiral Thrawn figures. This is one of my longest videos I think that I've created. It's definitely the longest minifig centric video I've created. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you've made it this far, I hope that all of this video has been informative and helpful. But besides that, I thank you for making it this far, if you have. But as always, like, comment, subscribe, do all the normal stuff, and I'll catch you next time, guys.